Welcome back. This is the Daily Brief. Now, before we get on to matters on graft and, of course, understanding the contraband sugar probe, let's cross over to Marikiti, where Victor Law is on standby to just tell us exactly what has been happening. Victor, we can see smoke and fire right behind you, and, of course, a bit of a scuffle. What exactly has led to this right now?
Ian, to anybody who's been in the field here in Nairobi will always tell you that sometimes covering demonstration is one of the hardest jobs in Nairobi. In fact, the number of tear gas canisters always being lobbed here in Nairobi actually can outnumber the number of tear gas has been deployed anywhere in the country. Now, this is it. Today, we woke up to some crazy, again, a demonstration in Marikiti. Apparently, the chairman of the Marikiti Traders Association was arrested yesterday night, and alongside other 4 guys by the city askaris. Allegations we are yet to ascertain why they were arrested, and so traders here at the Marikiti have been engaging police in running battles. We have seen a number of littered tear gas canisters. In fact, they're all littered from that end, the Weybridge, until that side of the Neno Evangelical Center for Dr. Margaret Wanjiru. It's been crazy here. We have been struggling, tear gas, gunshots all over. But again, they are also been throwing stones. So it's about us also keeping safety. Behind me, burning tires, as you can see, trying to riot and bring the attention to the authorities here in Nairobi. And what they're saying is that they're only trying to forge for the release of their officials, apparently, who were arrested last night. Here in Marikiti, police have cordoned off this section of the road. Actually, this is Haile Selassie Avenue, where has been cordoned off. And transport actually has been paralyzed. The whole of this side going towards the side of Jogo Road, many people are actually alighting at the city stadium and then taking their routes towards that side of the Nairobi bus station towards the CBD. So just come. In 1 minute, if you can just bear with me. Ian, sometimes covering this kind of demonstrations is never easy. This place is always packed with business people. You will always, anybody who's always been around this place will tell you that this place is always packed until this end. But right now, it's tear gas canisters, it's burning tires. This is not something that is quite new here in Nairobi. We have done this before. We have covered so many demonstrations before. And absolutely, with police officers still on site, just to make sure that everything is taken under control. Here it is, burning tires. Cops actually trying, and actually some few people have been arrested, if you can see. If you can just walk right the side, some people have been arrested at the church, at the market. Kindly, if you can just, maybe one person has been rounded off. You can get that shot. One of the people who have been arrested has been clobbered there, trying to run for his safety. Police officers taking control of the situation, and this is it. So we have been here for the last few hours, and I know how it's going to be. For now, I'll just take you back to Ian for more Daily Brief updates, and then we'll continue later on as this action unfolds. Back to you in studio, Ian.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Some very dramatic scenes definitely happening then. Of course, we'll be waiting for an official communication from police authorities just to tell us why exactly that has been happening, with claims of, arrests of some of the residents and business operators in that particular area, leading to those demonstrations. Now, let's go back to our discussion on matters war on graft, specifically the contraband sugar probe. Just last week, the National Assembly, some of the members of Parliament actually trashed and quashed the report coming from the joint sitting of the Trade and Agriculture Committees, terming it squarely as shoddy. This forced them to go back to investigate further. Joining us right now is Kiambu Town Member of Parliament, Jude Njomo, and of course I've retained everyone else on the panel. Jude, if you had a chance to have a look at the report by the Joint Committee in regards to matters contraband sugar, what were your immediate thoughts?
Well, I have not really gone through the report in details. I've just maybe read a few things about it. But I think the report did not tell us exactly what we wanted to know.
Okay.
First, we wanted to know about the quality of the sugar. Mm-hmm. Now, this did not come out very clean. They claimed that the tests have not been exhausted and they need more time for the tests to be done. But the big question here, begging for an answer, is how did we have all that sugar imported at the detriment of our sugar farmers in the country? I know that whenever there's a shortage...
They blame this on drought, and therefore, as a country, we're not able to raise the sufficient
There could be a drought,
levels,
but you cannot bring a sugar supply which can last the country for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
You inject or you bring in sugar that can compensate the deficit that is there for that year. The amount of sugar that was dumped in our country was too much, such that it cannot be able to compete with the local manufacturing of sugar.
Okay.
It was too much. So my question is, how did that, all the other years whenever there have been some importation of sugar,
okay,
the minister always gives a quota or the amount that is supposed to be imported. This was like a blank check. Bring all the sugar that you can be able to bring.
Okay. Bonnie, you come from the sugar belt area. Do you believe that the gazettement of the duty-free importation period actually led to this kind of commotion that we are in right now?
It was economic sabotage. In fact, I'm surprised that this committee did not start off with inviting the Minister for Finance to tell us how it occurred that in his Gazette notice, he gazetted 2 items, dairy and sugar. On dairy, he specified that it could only be imported by people in that business. But when it came to sugar, he specified that it could be brought in by anybody without stating how much. Traditionally, the amount of sugar that is supposed to be brought in the country is based on what we have produced so that we breach the deficit. This he did not do.
He actually said when he appeared before that particular committee that the monitoring agencies are under the Agriculture and Industrialization Ministries, therefore leaving that to them.
No. He's the one who signed the Gazette notice, and therefore he cannot pass the buck. He was simply not put under sufficient pressure for a full disclosure. Let me tell you, I looked at that committee, and with all due respect to my former colleagues, one of you in that committee, earlier on in his life, had told me that, Bonnie, why sometimes do you push government so much? I was not brought to Parliament so that I go home back a pauper. This is because we were arguing over the illegal allocation of land in Karen at that time, and he had been suspected to be one of them. So when I saw him seated on that committee, I said, nothing will come out of this.
Therefore, if that is anything to go by, Charles, self-interest first at the expense of the Monanchi, and if it is first interest first, could that be why that particular joint committee could not come with a comprehensive report?
With a lot of respect to the chairman of the committee, my friend Kanini, I must say Parliament has failed miserably. And I'm saying that again with a lot of respect to my brother here. I know he's been a lone voice, but the bottom line is MPs, and again Jujomo is an MP, have been so preoccupied with winning the subsequent elections. They usually focus too much on CDF. And it's not just about implementation, it's about those checks that they move around with to this and the other school giving out. The aspect of oversight and legislation has failed miserably to a large extent. And that's why I am sure if you go into that Parliament, you'll find a lot of reports that have not been implemented. Yet Parliament can force the Cabinet to implement these recommendations. Now, when you get an opportunity to come up with a report on an issue that is so burning in as far as Kenyans are concerned, and then you come up with a half-baked report, then what are you telling Kenyans to do? Where are Kenyans expected to go to next? Especially when you're talking about these government chemists are not given as a report. So many days, how long does it take? Are you telling importers bring this sugar and wait for as long as it can be waited for before they release it to the public without the tests happening? Because I don't see an importer paying demurrage for substance that is stored simply because the government chemist has not been able to establish so that we can get Kenya Bureau of Standard certification. I think there's a disconnect somewhere that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
Parliament must wake up.
And if you listen to the Speaker, Colonel, even himself was confused after going through the report. Does the sugar have perhaps too much moisture? Is it copper? Is it mercury? Leaving more questions unanswered than it should be.
Before I come to that, Ian, let me say this. During my days when I was a young man, you used to listen to MPs speak. You used to see the demeanor, the activities of MPs, and you could see these are honorable people of this country. you could see these are patriots, people who want to change the lives of Kenyans. Their interest was not self-interest. It was more. It was for the people to move forward and make this country a better place to live. Somewhere along the line, we changed the rules of the game. The salary of an MP used to be like 20, 30,000. We moved this from there to about 900,000. Then we shifted the interest of an MP from doing the right thing, being a patriot, to looking for money. And we made our politics so moneyed that without money you can never be an MP. So that is where the rain started beating us. But coming to the sugar issue for me, what the committee did was a total whitewash. It was a total waste of our money as Kenyans. Now, the way this happened, one, is there may be a bit of incompetence, but there is definitely lack of commitment.
And incompetence on whose part?
On the part of the MPs. They are not analyzing these issues properly and coming up with the right things. And there is also the issue of commitment. They are not committed. Then there is the issue of self-interest. Everybody wants to make as much money as possible. I watch on TV, and there is this thing with a big hat. He's supposed to be one
Jude,
of the...
I'll come to you, but
let me finish this, please.
I want to react to that.
I'll give you a chance.
Please,
Yeah.
let me finish, because so that the MP can react. And I could see them, everybody was around the man. And then you cannot be investigating a man who you are kneeling before.
Okay.
It can't happen.
Bonnie, let me bring you in because I know you want to step out. And my question to you is, how do you think Parliament is doing in terms of, the investigative aspect and its capacity? We just saw this week Raila Odinga say that, investigations should be led to the investigating agencies and not Parliament squarely.
The Honorable Raila has said that many times, up to and including cautioning me when I was the chairman of Public Accounts. Again, I want to take this opportunity to appeal to him, because he's a highly listened to leader in this country, that he should be forthright and also remind Kenyans that once upon a time, he sat on the Public Accounts Committee of the National Assembly. He also conducted investigations like these young members of Parliament. So what is it that has changed now, which allowed Raila to do what they were doing now, and it was right, and which makes him unhappy now that they're doing it? If somebody has told him to talk tough on his MPs so that they can back off from investigations, then he's doing the wrong thing. The investigatory arm of Parliament is not personalized. It is institutional, and it is within the standing orders of the National Assembly and the Senate. Members of Parliament world over do investigations. In fact, those committees are interchangeably called all over the world, either as oversight committees or investigatory committees. Why is he stopping them?
Final word, way forward in terms of ensuring that Parliament comes with conclusive reports that see the light of day.
The way forward is that we need to do slightly more.
Okay.
The current setup, to use the language Benjamin used, of where the rain started beating us, you forgot to include the fact that when we also allowed members of Parliament to themselves be importing sugar. So that in that committee, we have got MPs who are themselves importers. So they would not have exposed themselves. Okay. It's very complicated. Thank you very much. I really must go.
Thank you, Bonnie. I have to let you go also because we're keeping time as well.
As I go, may I beg Parliament that you are too important and too significant in our lives for you to get it wrong. At least on this one, you needed to tell us whether there was mercury in sugar or not.
Okay, thank you.
Two, you should have told us this many companies were involved in importing, and of this, these are the ones who are importing the poisoned sugar, and these ones who are doing a fair trade practice.
Okay, thank you very much. Bonnie Khalwale is the Deputy Party Leader for Kenya. Jude, I'm starting with you right after we take a look at this particular press briefing happening right now. Ambassador Amina Mohammed of Education Ministry is addressing the press in regards to some of the things our ministry is doing. And of course, this is a stakeholders meeting to discuss matters early childhood development. Let's listen in.
What everybody else has said here, because I was hoping that, that conversation about power belongs to all of us. But since it's been repeated several times, I will not do that. I'll only tell you that I'm extremely delighted to join you this morning for this joint consultative meeting between ECD teachers, and their representatives and stakeholders. And I'll tell you this because it's something I truly believe is true. You are actually the most important sector in the whole education continuum. And this has been proven by studies that have been carried out by neurosurgeons who carry out studies in neuroscience, as well as economic studies over very many years. So you are critical to the future success of our children, as well as the continued growth of our economy. In fact, love or hate for education begins in your classrooms. I know that for a fact because it's what has happened to every child that I have known. There is a huge difference between children who go to ECD classrooms that are full of knowledge, that are ready to teach, that are also full of love, than those that either do not go to these classrooms or go to those that are not well prepared for our children. And so I want to begin by saying that I'm really grateful to Nat for bringing all of us here together this morning to share best practices, to create networks, and to expand our understanding of ECD. I'm confident that our meeting will come up with strategies to improve the quality of education in ECD classrooms and centers, but also better access to quality, equitable, and relevant ECD across our country. Ladies and gentlemen, early childhood education forms the foundation for the holistic development of our children and their later achievement in life. It's also true that early childhood intervention programs targeting young children with quality health care and nutrition, early learning and stimulation, as well as social protection, are directly linked to positive education and socio-economic outcomes. I'm actually convinced that if all our children spend these 2 years in early education classrooms, we'll probably have less fires in our schools, and less unrest in our classrooms, less burning of our dormitories, and less misunderstanding in our education sector. And so the responsibility that you have is extremely heavy. And I hope that you're ready to take it up and ensure that you instill Kenyan values, the right values, in our children as we entrust them to you. But let me also say this, that I've listened very, very carefully to what was said this morning about the environment in which you work, your take home at the end of the month, and it's something that I will continue to consult on to make sure that I actually bring this information to all of us who need to make the right decisions for your welfare and for the development of ECD education. The good news is this, that in fact, since the Constitution of 2010, that the children that attend early childhood education centers have increased by leaps and bounds. It is also true that we have many more teachers in ECD centers than we have ever.
Ambassador Amina Mohammed of Education speaking right now on the importance of empowering early childhood development, addressing stakeholders within the ministry at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. Let's now cross over to Eldred. Like I'd mentioned to you, the Court of Appeal is set to make a ruling in regards to whether to uphold the election of Kangogo Bowen or not. Let's listen into that ruling being read out.
So the upshot of the above is that this appeal is hereby allowed. The orders made by the election court are hereby set aside and substituted with an order dismissing the petition and confirming the election of the appellant Bowen David Kagongo as a member of National Assembly. We award cause in favor of the appellant and the second and third respondents as aforesaid. Those shall be the orders of this court. Okay. Okay.
Yet another victory within the same court for this time round for Marakwet East Member of Parliament Kangogo Bowen, after the Court of Appeal has actually found that the Member of Parliament was elected rightfully. This is following a voter who went to the High Court to challenge his election. And at the High Court level, it had quashed his election and found that he had not been rightfully and freely and fairly elected, therefore thrashing his election. But this has now been overturned by the Court of Appeal, and as you can see, Member of Parliament for Marakwet East, Kangogo Bowen, they are celebrating with some of his supporters, including the legal counsel. We shall be crossing over there as soon as he is issuing a press briefing and to get further reactions from that. We shall also give you the exact details about that particular ruling. Let's now continue the discussion right here. We're touching on matters contraband sugar, but even before that, let me just introduce Jim India, who joins us right now as governance consultant. Thank you, Jim, for joining us. But before I come to you, allow me to start off with Mheshimiwa Jude here, who had a pressing issue. Parliament being termed as lack of objective, selfish in one way or another, pushing their own interest, and, you know, a failure in many words to say. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this discussion has given these two gentlemen an opportunity to thrash Parliament. And I think, apart from this report, which nobody is happy about, maybe apart from the committee, the joint committee that did it, I think Parliament has done some wonderful job in the past, and it continues to do the same, both in terms of developing reports and passing legislations that are required in the country. So it doesn't mean because one committee or two committees have failed their duties that Parliament should be equated to only those that action or to that report that is not properly done. I have been member of Public Accounts Committee, and we have done a lot of investigations. We have been whistleblowers for so many bad activities that were happening then. We have preempted some corrupt deals from not happening. So by one committee failing to have done its duty to the required standard does not mean that Parliament has totally failed in its duties. It continues to do its work, it continues to do its oversight responsibility, and I think our Bunga is doing good work.
We shall come back to that, but Jude, you can take notice of what is happening on the screen. One of your colleagues has just been reinstated by the Court of Appeal, that is Kangogo Bowen. Any comment on that?
Well, I congratulate Kangogo Bowen.
Yeah.
Mheshimiwa, he's a hard-working honorable member, and I think he was going through a very difficult time when he's representing his people with shaky grounds. He didn't know which direction to go. I don't know, I have not found out what were the grounds of petition, but I can imagine as an elected member how it feels when you are going through petition and you have heavy responsibilities to your people. It's a very difficult position, and I would like to congratulate him. Now I know he's going to work when he's relaxed and he's going to deliver.
Jim, let me hear from you. Months after the election, we're still dealing with a number of court cases. Actually, quite a number yet to be determined, including that of Turkana women rep, Joyce Manikoro, set to be decided tomorrow.
I think we have to appreciate the judicial system in its entirety. And what we're seeing today is, at the High Court level, the voter actually went and the election had been quashed, but the Mheshimiwa went ahead and appealed the case. And so it's to appreciate the judicial process. We might not like it, but that is the process. That is the law. And we must be law-abiding citizens at the end of the day. So even those that are still awaiting, that should be the outcome. Whatever the courts decide, that is the process we have. Those are our laws. Those are the laws of the land.
Okay. And at the same time, we must also recognize one thing. If you remember in the past, petition used to take even years.
Okay.
Sometimes they would not be decided when the next election comes in place. But the law was changed, and they were given timelines that within this period of time, all petitions must be decided. And that is what has made the courts look efficient. We should do the same with corruption cases. Some corruption cases take years.
I'll come back to that. I'll come back to matters corruption, Jude. That's not something you want to start right now. Charles.
Yeah. I think
let's talk about Nandi Hills Member of Parliament yesterday. He had termed his nullification as purely political, and of course yesterday it went in his favor. Some say after things cooled down. What do you think?
And he won now, and it's not political. I think we must also appreciate the judicial system,
yes,
which is an independent arm of the government. And I think to me it's more of a judicial system that is functional, that is working, that you can be able to set aside the decision of a relatively raw court and make a decision that is binding, and everyone respects the same. I think to me we must respect this. We must appreciate the Constitution in entirety that provides for us going to court in the event we are not happy about certain situations. Alfred Ketel is my friend. He's won through a court process. I want to believe moving forward he'll be very praiseful of the judicial system. He'll not settle on the Court of Appeal only. He'll talk all the way from the magistrate courts all the way to the Supreme Court. And I think that's what we need to see. We need to see people encouraging the judiciary to style up and to have Kenyans respecting the decisions of the same, because until that happens, then we'll find even determinations of our issues will not go down, in as far as we are concerned.
Okay, Kana, do you see, the expedition of cases as part of, the reforms brought forward by Chief Justice David Maraga, and even his predecessor, Willie Mutunga, who had really emphasized on some of these reforms?
The genesis of this speed is the Constitution 2010. In the Constitution, we put some timelines for these cases to be completed. This, as Mheshimiwa has noted, was because some petitions before would go through the whole term when it is still pending in court. So I think that gave the judiciary the impetus to be able to speed up these matters. And I think we should commend the judiciary for doing so. Over and above that, I think there are many changes that are happening in the judiciary. It cannot change overnight. It will take time. There are issues of recording in courts and so forth and so forth. And I think the current Chief Justice is doing the best he can to make sure that we have courts that are in the status of the 21st century.
Still a bit of criticism on his part in terms of how the judiciary is dealing with corruption. Now, Jude, I'm sure he's
let me say something about that.
Yeah.
Corruption is a cancer, is a disease, and is a disease that fights back. So the moment you start fighting it, it will start fighting back. Because anybody who is corrupt is rich. They have enough resources to be able to change things, to even go into politics and make sure that politics comes in and it occludes the whole thing and you can move forward. Now, the courts, as we speak now, must come up with regulations, which must be taken to Parliament to be ratified, so that we know when a corruption case starts, it does not end until there is a judgment. So that everybody who is taken to court on corruption, they know off the bat that the moment you step there, you will never leave until we determine your case. That is the only way we are going to deter people to know that if you do corruption, there are consequences, and those consequences are dire, and regardless of how much money you have, you cannot stop the process.
I think we need to appreciate that we have a division on anti-corruption and economic crimes now, as we speak.
Yeah.
And more importantly, we even have practice directions of the same. So you'll find adjournments that used to be there on average matters will not happen. I think I'm seeing a situation whereby this process will be fast-tracked. It's only that there's little publicity on issues surrounding the judiciary, and Kenyans are also disinterested to a large extent, so that when you hear practice briefs have been launched publicly, people don't get to know what exactly is going on. It sounds like it's such a legal issue, but I think it's practical, normal issue, basic issues of life that Kenyans need to associate themselves with and relate with, so that they know when matters of this nature are moving fast, it's not because nothing has been has been done.
Jude, and then Jim, in terms of corruption, the court system dealing with corruption, you had raised some reservations.
You see, the kind of corruption that we are having in our country is unprecedented. And we have to use unprecedented methods to curb, to get rid of this corruption. I appreciate what Colonel Mwema have said, but you see, once you go to court, you are presumed to be guilty until proved innocent. You are presumed innocent until proved guilty. And what your approach is making the person to be guilty until proved innocent. So we cannot say we are going to jail them before they go through the court process. But we should limit the time, the litigation time, because it's taking too long. These people have the money. They are trying to buy their justice, like Eric Wainena once told them. They are trying to buy their justice. And that is why sometimes these cases take too long. We should have a specified period of time within which the economic crimes and corruption cases should take.
But Jude, don't you think this should cut across, because the court will be acting based on evidence provided before them?
Mm-hmm. You mean we
should it be cut across?
All the legal cases?
Yeah.
I am particularly interested in the corruption cases.
Jim, just quick before we take a short commercial break.
I think for me, we can't deal with the courts without dealing with the DPP's office, without dealing with the DCI, because the courts rule based on what you're saying, evidence. It's what is presented before them. But of course, the height of corruption in those courts happened during the Evans Kidoro and Justice Philip Tunui case, where about 200 million exchanged hands. At that level, then we knew that it's more than just the evidence that goes before the court.
This time touching the Supreme Court. We shall come back to that. Okay, clearly, we shall come back to that. We're taking a short commercial break right here, and as you can see, news reaching us right now is that the Court of Appeal in Eldoret has upheld the election of Marakwet East Member of Parliament, Kangogo Bowen. We shall react to this and other stories a little bit later. Stay tuned, sorry.